Good evening and welcome to tonight's Monday night panel, our actual penultimate regular Monday night panel. We're here again next Monday to review the Ipswich game, but the following Monday we have got a review of the season special. So I hope you'll be able to join us for that one. So tonight we've got lots to talk about. So I will bring in Vic. Good evening, Vic.
Chris, a very good evening to you. And this is the last one with this mop because it's coming off tomorrow. I can tell you, I am so relieved.
Look forward to seeing it.
Yes.
So we also have Matt Heywood and Dan Hunt, and which I will bring on now. And we hope to have Mark Merriman, who will be joining us if he can. So let's bring on Matt, and let's bring on Dan.
Evening, Matt. Evening, Dan.
Good evening. Questions for anybody, please leave them in the comments and we'll get us through as many as we can. And I will see you all later.
Cheers, Chris, thank you very much indeed. Chris will be back a little later on. So I sort of wore this top today. I don't know if I can get it in the right angle. With this badge, Matt. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. Just in tribute to you. It's an old fleece, but with that badge. So
there we go.
Yeah. Right,
just about see it from under the barnet, Vic.
Yeah, I know. Say goodbye to it because it's going tomorrow. Thank goodness for that. Right, now then, let's get into this then. Saturday. Now, I'm going to liken this. I've played in charity games in the past, Matt, where you spend the entire 90 minutes against ex-professionals chasing the ball. They just pass the ball around and you spend 90 minutes just chasing it. That's how it felt to me on Saturday. Dean Lewington, who must have been playing since the early days of Stanley Matthews, it seems to me, must have had one of the easiest games of his entire career. What on earth went wrong on Saturday?
Everything, I think. Like you said, Dean Lewington's he's nearly as old as me, and he's played 800 odd games, and he was bombing forward. He was playing 1-2s. He still looked like a top draw player. No one laid a glove on him. But you say having 80% possession or whatever the stats were, and you've got to chase the ball, but there didn't seem to be much chasing going on, if I'm being honest. And then I think the scoreline reflected that.
It was. How would you sum it up, Dan? I mean, I just thought it was embarrassing. And, here's a game where you've got a slight chance of staying up, admittedly very slight. But actually, there was nothing, was there?
No, I think the possession stats in the first half were very telling. Offline, did you say it was 82% to MK Dons in the first half?
Yeah, something like that.
So very much like your charity game analogy. Just men against boys, sadly. I was a bit confused to see the team line up. Obviously, we used a pretty simple 4-4-2 during the week against Portsmouth, and that bore fruit. So I was confused to see the team and the formation change, and I think bringing in a very rusty Baudry didn't help. I'm not sure it's particularly Baudry's fault. He clearly wasn't ready to come in, but no, nothing worked, nothing functioned in that 11, and against a very good possession-based football team, we were murdered.
I think it's fair to say, Matt, we were discussing this before, weren't we? And you were, you hit the nail on the head. They had a plan, and Swindon seemed to me had a plan for weeks, months, and that was the difference, wasn't it, on Saturday?
Yeah, like we were saying offline, that I've seen recent interviews with their manager when they were struggling and they'd lost a few on the bounce, and he was adamant that they were going to stick to the way that he wants them to play, which is pass, and a couple of bad results, they weren't going to change their philosophy, and that was it was refreshing to hear, sort of a progressive view, which certainly this season, or for the majority of it, Swindon haven't had. And then chasing the ball, they went to the 3 or the 5 at the back with a defender who's not played for months and months and months, and what was to be gained by putting him in, I don't know. And then Anthony Grant back there, who, he didn't look fit to me. It's come on and criticise without knowing, what's behind it. I know that in the past I've played knowing I've needed an operation on my knee, and you just sort of try and battle through, but he didn't look fit. He didn't look like he could move. So it was a shambles back there on Saturday.
Yeah, 3-0 down at half time, and you think, right, come on, look, a bit of pride. We've talked about Mark. Good evening to you, by the way.
Hello, sorry I'm late. Recovering from the shock of Saturday.
Shocking, Matt.
That's terrible, really.
Detention, Matt.
Well, I was going to say, you're a teacher. You ought to at least have brought a letter. I mean, it really is bad. You've talked about this before. At least show some pride in the shirt. Come on, in these last few games. 3-0 at half-time. You think, right, come on, at least a bit of passion. And then 2 goals in like 35 seconds. Game's gone, all over with. What were your views on Saturday, Mark? If you can actually say them, I'm not totally sure you can you?
Well, I bought the match, having said that I wouldn't, in the sort of vain hope after the Tuesday performance, which was quite decent against Pompey and a good win. Buoyed us all up a little bit for a few days. And then to see that, I mean, I've railed against the board and against the management for much of the season, rightly. But I think the players need to take a long, hard look at themselves after that. There was no pride or spirit or passion in that performance from anybody on the pitch. And after 49 minutes, Vic, I switched off.
Yeah, I don't know why I kept watching, to be honest. Some sort of masochism, I suppose. This from Rob. Good evening, all. Desperately disappointing, but totally predictable. The real gut wrench was the way we just capitulated in the later games when we had a chance of survival. Put no plan for it. Well, we've just said that. Derek, hello to you, Derek. If a player's playing one unfit, do you blame the player or the manager for picking him? I think Tommy right afterwards, Matt, said it was a mistake. He shouldn't have played him. But I don't know. I mean, come on. If you're around the club, you know who's fit and who's not fit. Where does the fault lie there?
Well, I mean, it lies with the manager or the coach who's picking him. But then I suppose the player has to be. I mean, you don't know what's going on. There's no way he could be match fit, even if he was. He's been running, training, whatever. He's not played since when? A good few months.
Yeah.
And to come, but I don't see what's to be gained by it. It's not like he's the an absolute colossus that the team relies on and just his presence in there, because he isn't. He's a decent enough player, but there's enough defenders, fit defenders. I just don't see what's to be gained by putting him in there. And then obviously, absolute disaster. 25 minutes and he's off the pitch, and Tommy Wright comes out and says it was a gamble. Perhaps shouldn't have done it, but I would think that's obvious.
But
it
Matt,
wasn't as if. Go on, sorry, Mark.
Sorry, Matt. Whatever happened off the pitch? How many games did you play for Swindon, Matt? 208.
208.
Yeah. You'd never played like that. You always wore the shirt with pride. Okay, you'd admit that some games weren't as good as others, but you never not try. There were never occasions where you didn't try. You always gave of your best, and I couldn't honestly look at any player on Saturday, perhaps with the exception of Twine a little bit at times. I think Payne runs around. The rest of them it was just pathetic.
Honestly. Yeah, I mean, everyone has a bad game. Everyone has a game and they come off and they've been roasted by someone, or you have a team performance, you get beat 4-0. It happens to everyone. It's not just, but consistently to look at it and say, that was poor to be, 3-0 down at half time and a couple of times in recent weeks. And I know fans say, lack of effort and whatever. And as players, you'll say, well, no, everyone, you're giving 100% all the time. But even as an ex-player, you can look at that and say, weeks ago they weren't playing for the manager. Something wasn't right there, and as for Saturday, it was an absolute shambles of a performance.
Well, they took Will Grigg off to save us further punishment. I think he must have been very annoyed, because he must have sensed more than 4. And to be honest, had they taken their chances, it could have been double figures, and it wouldn't have been an overstatement to say that, would it, Dan? I mean, it is another Dan, by the way, and I'll get to this in a minute. Give this some thought, but I'll ask you a reaction to what I just said. Play the under-18s in the last 2 games, and let's see who wants to play and fight for this club. What do we have to lose now? But, on that, going back to what I just said, I mean, it could have been double figures, and nobody would have said, no, do you know what? They didn't deserve double figures, because they would have done. They were so dominant.
Yeah. This sadly not the first time this season either. We've come off saying it could have been double figures. I recall a grim night at Crewe where from 2-0 up, we could have deservedly lost 7 or 8-2. So
it's not the first time this month. It could have happened at Wimbledon as well.
Well, true enough.
It could have happened at Wimbledon as well.
Yeah.
It could have been 7 or 8 there. Easy.
I was having a count up earlier. I'm trying to teach my 3-year-old how to count, and handily Swindon have conceded 19 goals in the month of April, which is just such a sad way to just completely capitulate. 6 defeats out of 7 in April, coming into that as the crucial month. But to Dan's point on the comments, I'm not sure anyone's going to play the whole under-18 side, but if there's any lads in there who the club think have got a chance, then absolutely they should be playing the next 2 games. People of the ilk like Harry Parsons, forward, he must be absolutely itching to pull that shirt on and show the Swindon Town fans what he's got in the locker ahead of hopefully turning professional next year. And for a few other lads like Scott Twine and Jack Payne, who I also acknowledge, I could still look at them and say they're putting a shift in. I haven't got any beef with them. It could be their last couple of games for Swindon Town as well. So it's certainly going to be a turbulent summer, plenty of squad turnover, and God knows when we're going to be in a position to appoint a manager, set a budget. It's really, really up in the air. I've never known it be quite this up in the air. Mark, you've been watching Town a lot longer than me, same as you, Vic. Is there any summer you can compare this to?
No, not really. And I was going to get onto that in a minute. I mean, there are so many unknowns at the moment. Just on that, we'll finish this young players thing, Mark. What are your views on that? I mean, Matt will tell us in a minute how the difference between playing youth football to men's football, if you like, professionally. But what are your views on that?
Yeah, I think stick them in, Vic, to be honest. I mean, you could say it might ruin players, but there's no pressure on them. We've already been relegated, and I, for one, would like to see, some lads who've come through the system. Harry Parsons, Dan mentioned, absolutely right. I don't know the youth players well enough to know, what they're like, although I could say that a lad from school, from Sheldon, that I go to, has just been given a 2-year scholarship, so I'm very hopeful that he'll make it. We must bring young players through. We simply must. It's no good relying on these players, these journeymen. We need to bring young players through to have a youth policy worthy of its name, and we don't, frankly. And that could start on Saturday. So I'm all for it, and it doesn't matter really in a sense what the score is. Just give them their head and give them a go and see what happens.
Matt, what about that? I mean, goodness, I was trying to think in all the 50 plus years I've watched the Town of many worst, just embarrassing displays than that. And I'm really scratching my head because apart from throwing the laptop on the floor, I don't know what else I could have done really, because you're not in the ground, you can't vent your opinion. But what about that step up from youth football to men's football? I mean, you've done it as a player, clearly.
Yeah.
What is the difference?
Well, it is massive, and it was a bit different back in my day. There was a reserve team at Burnley, so it was, you come through the U team, and then, Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, it was called the old Pontins League back then, and it was, you were playing men's football with guys that maybe played in the first team on the Saturday, got 10 minutes or whatever, and then they play an hour. So 18, 19, well, I suppose I made my first team debut at 18, but at 18 you're playing against, proper grown men, proper old school centre forwards for me, that bully you a bit, but that's how you learn. It's a bit different now coming straight from academy football, which I'm sure is all very nice, very technical, to then, being put into to the first team. But I mean, why not? There's nothing to lose. It's a chance to give a few a taste of what actually a match day involves, and the build up with and without fans in the ground as well. So it's a sort of a soft introduction. There's nothing to play for, and I don't think the fans would have any problem with a young team going out, running round, putting some tackles in, showing enthusiasm and coming away being beaten 4-0 by a proper first team from another club. The fans would accept that, but it's when, you're seeing that lack of sort of intensity and then getting beat 4-5 from experienced first team players that isn't acceptable.
No, it's not as if we've got a great home record to protect either, is it? This from Lee Jackson. Matty Heywood always tried in a town shirt, so there you are. This from Matt Taylor. I don't think it's the Exeter City manager who lives not too far from me, or the former player that we had, although it may be. Who knows? They've had a strange approach to match fitness all season. Broadbent, Tyler Smith, Grant Omatoy. Remember him? We signed him on loan from Norwich. And now Baudry, all selected out of the blue at times this season. Bizarre. I mean, Omatoy, Dan, I mean, he must be thinking, what have I bothered to come from Norwich for? Because I've been sitting on the bench for 6 months. What is the point?
Well, first things, it's a long old drive. No, I think there's a wider problem with English football and probably top-level football in a lot of countries. This lack of a bridge between the under-18s. So that last year between, going from being a scholar to a pro, Swindon have got a few young lads who are professionals in the squad at the moment. Massimo Giamatti, Anthony Cheshire, Toby Holland was released at Christmas. Luke Haynes has obviously been on the books for a couple of years. There is no football for them to play. At the very least, Omatoye at Norwich could have stayed and played for their under-23s in the sort of Premier League 2 or whatever it's called. So certainly it is odd in the extreme for a young, talented player to be sent out on loan to League One and then rot. But we've also seen the way Tyler Smith's been treated by Sheridan in the last 3 or 4 months. It's absolutely puzzling to leave a natural goal scorer out in a relegation battle. It's easy to forget. Tyler Smith's got 9 goals.
Yeah.
We're not a good enough side to be leaving out someone who's got 9 goals and 15 starts.
No, I agree.
I guess circling back on Omatoy, we'll never know.
No.
For him personally, I hope he goes out on loan somewhere next season and flourishes, and/or does a bit better at Norwich and makes the odd Premier League appearance. But this season at Swindon, we said it offline, if you were managing it to make everything go wrong, you would have made all the decisions that Sheridan did make, and the treatment of Omatoye and Tyler Smith is another one that fits into that bracket, sadly.
Got loads of comments coming in. Let me have a look. This is from Harvey. I'm really hoping that some youth players get given their debuts for the final few games, as they've had a relatively good season. Do you think it's a good idea? Well, we've been discussing that. Or is there a danger it could damage their confidence? Well, experience, end of the season, you're already relegated. Nobody puts any pressure on you. Get out and enjoy yourself. Simple as that, I would imagine. Dave Seal, they've had their life sapped out of them over the last 6 months. Let Peacock take sole ownership of the team and see if he can relight their fire. From Rob, we talk of Peacock possibly taking over. Is this a classic case of the heart ruling the head, or should we find someone with experience? Well, let's get into that then, Mark, because here we are. Huge summer coming up. Yeah. We'll get a trust update from Dan in a little while, if he's got time to do that, and you see smoke coming off his head. But let's talk about this summer, because this is massive. We'll probably have a new owner. We'll have to have a new manager. We'll have to have a new squad. Season tickets are going to be sorted out. Everything. And they've got, 8-9 weeks to do all this?
Yeah. At least the pubs are open.
That might need to go there, to be fair. So what's your view, Mark?
That's a root and branch overhaul, Vic, isn't it? It's every single thing that you can think of. You've said it pretty much all, haven't you? It has to come from the top. We want the owner out. We make no secret of that. We want somebody else to come in who's got Swindon Town Football Club, close to their heart, and isn't there to make a quick buck, which probably hasn't worked for the current one. And then we've got to think about who's going to be manager. Yes, some talk of Lee Peacock. I saw Matt doing this in the background when his name was mentioned, as if that could be possibly, and I agree with Matt, a cheap option. but at least he has a connection to the football club. You know, we're going to just get some other journeyman manager in, you know, like Phil Brown, with the greatest respect to him. You know, he just didn't do the business, did he? Do we want, I think the Swindon Town Football Club has a history of appointing young managers. Certainly it did when we first started watching Vic, 80s and 90s in particular, with Macari, Hoddle, Ardiles. So I think that's probably the route we need to go down if we can afford it. And of course, that's the big question, isn't it? If the current owner remains in place, God help us, because we'll just have a team of journeymen, a team of loans, a team of cast-offs and injured players. If the current owner is replaced, I think we've got a chance. We've got a chance perhaps to stabilise, maybe to make the playoffs, but certainly not to, you know, get kicked out of the league, which is a very real possibility, isn't it? I think all of us fear that, don't we?
Well, I think we fear the downward spiral continuing. And I've spoken to people over the weekend, Matt, and, you know, if you said to me, finish halfway up League Two next season, I think I'd probably grab your hand off. Because, you know, my main fear is, look at Southend. You know, they're possibly going to end up in the National League. You know, if it happens, it happens. But we don't want it to happen, Matt. I mean, you know, you've played for this club. You know how the fans feel. And it is a massive summer coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. And on that, you know, I think in recent times, I don't know how many times have been in the last sort of 15, 20 years. Is it 4 relegations to League Two? Is that right?
Yeah,
3 or 4?
yeah.
But in the past occasions, it's sort of, well, we'll come up next year, or if not, it'll be 2 years, and it's sort of, that's how it's materialised. But especially the way football is and the way the club is now, it's certainly got a different feel. That going down this time isn't, you know, there's no guarantee that within 3 years, you know, we'll be back up in League One, because, you know, the football climate's changed massively as well. And it is a worry. So, you know, in terms of the ownership, if that doesn't get sorted out, then, you know, what sort of manager would want to come? Saying about experience, but experience costs money. You know, would you want to come with the, you know, the ownership sort of hanging over the club? And then the same for players. What sort of players are going to be attracted? Ones who would, you know, that maybe aren't good enough, but would look at it as a big move for them, or again, the money's not going to be there that was sort of last season or the season before. You know, you've got to go down the young player route. And in terms of who's still there out of this current squad, who's got a contract for next year, it's not many, is it? And
no, it's
and out of those, realistically, which ones do you actually want to stay anyway? So it's, you know, it's the full shebang: new owner, new manager, whole new squad. So it is going to be a tough summer.
Derek Elson, who we all know, of course, a legendary Swindon fan. I worry for next season, because until this situation with the ownership of the club is sorted out, any progress for next season looks to be a nightmare. You can't allow these currently in charge to sign a new manager and sign players for next season. That could take us to the usual scenario of picking up the leftovers. And that is what Matt was just saying, Dan. You know, it has to be whoever the owner is after the end of May, because, you know, you'll give us an update in a minute, but I believe that's when it's likely to happen. They have to sort this darn quickly, don't they? It's not a case of we can dawdle, we can have 5 minutes where, you know, and we'll do this in August. This has to be done pretty quickly to sort out all the things that I mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. I was going to interject earlier, but speed is absolutely of the essence. Compared to last summer's break, anyway, this is a long break between May and August, but, you know, time will soon fly. And when you think of court hearings and legal proceedings, you rarely think of these things being quick, do you? So absolutely massive summer ahead to try and get the ownership situation resolved satisfactorily, which you think would then lead on to an appointment of a chief exec, then an appointment of a manager. You could then start thinking about season tickets. The number of season tickets you sell might allow you to set a budget. And that obviously then allows you to start building the squad to hopefully, and I say this in all seriousness, like, if you offered me 18th, 19th in League Two next year with a guarantee that the ownership has changed, I think I would absolutely snap your hands off, gentlemen. It's just so important to me that this club survives and allows itself to thrive in a few years. So when I start taking my two boys, there is a community football club there that we can all be proud of.
Yeah, lots coming in. I mean, you were very kind to me, Mark, earlier when you said I remember I started in the 80s. Danny Williams and Bert Head were my sort of kick-off, so thanks for that. It's very kind of you. Stephen says Chris Wilder would do a good job. I don't for 1 minute think he would even... I mean, he would. I've got no question about that, but would he? I somehow doubt it, having been in the Premier League. Right, so what do you think, Mark? I mean, where we are at the minute, what would you take next season? Who is a possible manager, would you say?
So it was a really tricky one. Dan's right. You want a football club. That's the first and foremost thing. I think a lot will depend on the ownership, as we've already alluded to, but also it will depend on any possible FA sanction, including points deductions. How do you attract a manager and therefore players if you start having 12, 15 or more points deduction at the start of the season? And I think, that it's fairly realistic that happens. Much as we might say you're only punishing the fans, the FA have a history of doing that, I'm afraid. Not obviously to the sixth club that absolutely decimated football last week. They won't get a punishment apart from a fine. But if it comes to the likes of Swindon Town, we know they have a history. So that in itself will determine who we get. And it might mean that, with the greatest respect to Lee Peacock, a chap who I admire greatly, he is the one at the helm next year, perhaps ably assisted by somebody like Paul Caddis, maybe, if he fancies it. Paul?
Certainly, I think a Lee Peacock type appointment, with him having worked in the academy environment for the last 2 or 3 years, adding to the great work done by others like Alan McLaughlin. Get well soon, Alan. That could help with the transition if we are having to look at using some younger players. And I think the other thing you're bound to get with Lee Peacock is personality, firstly, but also I think he's the sort of character. And Matt, you can talk about this in a moment, having played against him. And did you play with him?
No, I left before he came. But I've played against him many a time when he was at Bristol City. We used to have good tussles. Yeah,
he strikes me as the sort who would be good with an arm around the shoulder. Players would want to play for him, and I think if it's going to be a bumpy ride this summer and next season, then maybe we need that. And actually, when I reflect on this season and where things went wrong, maybe Swindon Town missed an opportunity to appoint Noel Hunt as Richie Wellens' successor. And I think I was guilty as anyone at the time of thinking, is Noel Hunt a bit of, is he too friendly with the players? Is he a sort of nice guy where Wellens was the bad guy? But, Sheridan was just the complete opposite end of the scale, just a really horrible bloke. You see the way he hangs players out to dry post-match. You heard what he shouted to the players during the match at Pompey, and I'm sure that might not be unusual, Matt, but it was a real eye-opener for us supporters watching on iFollow that night. So,
yeah, well,
Peacock may be what we need, and he may fit whatever budget we're able to work with through July and August. Who knows?
The thing is, of course, Matt, you players on the pitch would probably have heard shouting by the manager, but of course, with fans in the ground, we wouldn't have picked that up. So, is that unusual?
Well, I mean, I know the game's moved on, since I stopped playing, but it's not unusual for the manager to shout something, to use a few expletives and have a go at someone, but it's unusual for it to be the only stuff that comes out of the manager's mouth. If it's just, berating the players all the time, then, if there's nothing constructive coming out, then what is the point? That's like Sunday League stuff. Yeah. You can have a shout. If someone is showing a lack of effort or they pull out of a tackle, then give them both barrels. But some of the stuff he was shouting for things that were happening, you think, what is that going to achieve? Then it was just abysmal management, to be honest.
Well,
something else.
Sorry, go on, Mark. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, Vic, and Matt, you could confirm this. It was quite often when players came off the pitch. You know, when you come off the pitch at most football league grounds with most managers, they will acknowledge you. They might give you a fist bump. They might put an arm around the shoulder. When players came off, having been substituted at Swindon, they literally ignored Sheridan, and he ignored them. There was a complete lack of rapport between Sheridan and the players. Unbelievable.
Sheridan's a COVID-safe manager. He don't get too close.
Well, it's a sign. It's a sign of no. There's no respect there. There's no mutual respect. You know, managers that I played for, they could get into you and give you some stick, and you might give a bit back. But you know, you're both grown men at the end of the day. Yes, one's your boss that is telling you what to do, and you know, the buck stops with him. But you can have a bit of a disagreement or whatever, and then still come off and shake hands and or get the rocket if you need it. But just to have that little bit of respect, even just a look. Sometimes all you need to catch their eye, but not a head down and just wait till everyone's passed and then I'll shuffle in. And
he was fist bumping the players, and if you saw what happened at half time, he puts an arm around Tyler Smith's shoulder. I bet that's the first time and only time he's had an arm around the shoulder in the entire year.
Yeah, from an ex-forward, it just put an arm around him, just a little pat on the bum, give him a little bit of encouragement, well done, whatever, and that's sometimes all you need. It's not, you don't have to be a tactical genius, but just a bit of, a bit of empathy, a bit of humility from a manager, and you get the best out of the players.
This from Stephen. Personally, I think Peacock would be a disaster. He's too nice. Managers need to have an edge to them. Well, we don't know whether he does or not because
he wasn't too nice when I used to play against him.
Well, I was going to say,
I'll tell you that.
This from Steve. Player manager, please. A manager who will make the players run through the town, train at Foundation Park on occasions. Fond memories of Macari when I was a kid. Stephen, thoughts on Paul Jewell? Will he be here to oversee player recruitment manager next season? From Lee, Crew's team is mainly their youth academy and their mid-table. Better than signing has-beens or players and spend half a season in the treatment room. 1 game in 10 just isn't acceptable. This from Wayne. Can we tell Danny looks 5 years older with his beard? No, we can't do that. This from Dave. Gerrard could take the step up from the Scottish Premier League. Slightly tongue-in-cheek, I kind of think that one. Lots of comments coming in then. And this from Matt. The only player Sheridan was friendly with was when Wigan came to the County Ground, which I think we kind of all remember that moment when there was a lot of fist pumping going on then. Right.
Hi, John. Thanks for leaving.
Right. Let's get into this then. Dan, obviously the trust, and I know the supporters club as well, has gone through this incredible growth in the last 7 days or 2 weeks, where many people have joined up. What is your thoughts? What are people saying to you? I'm guessing in unison they're saying one thing, but what is the main swell of opinion?
So, thank you, Vic. And firstly, I just want to say to what you've said there, what an incredible response we've had from the Swindon fan base, and I understand the official supporters club too. As of last night, we're above 900 members. I think it was 919, something like that. And that is more than triple from where we were as a baseline at our March AGM, which was, I think, 289. So absolutely incredible surge in new membership. Just want to say thank you very much from everyone at Trust STFC, which is myself and the 10 other people on the Trust STFC board. So thank you very much. You're giving us the strength in numbers and the financial clout to try and be able to battle, these issues off field at Swindon Town. So, I just want to repeat again, the contempt of which the fans were held in by Power's legal team at the most recent court hearing. Rob Angus is just a fan, and I see the work Rob Angus puts in alongside his day job and alongside his family every day, every week, relentlessly working hard for you, the fans. So, there was another comment about, the trust only got 260 members. They don't represent the fan base. Well, people have been very much voting with their feet since then. And we've added some, 600-700 new members. So really hopeful that we hit the 1,000 mark. I know Jay at the GW Reds is on a promise. If we hit the 1,000 before the end of April, he's going to give away a flag to a fan who's responded to their tweet. So if you haven't done that already, make sure you do. And yeah, just keep spreading the word about joining the trust and adding to our collective voice. Nag your dad, tell your granddad, speak to your friends on the phone. We want to keep that membership number going up and up so that our collective voice is stronger, our financial clout to, mount legal challenges or get legal advice, is much stronger. So we need to keep the pressure on Lee Power to sell the club to Clem Morfuni and his Axis Group. And as we've touched on tonight, time is absolutely of the essence, and it's a huge period ahead for STFC. So in terms of the feedback we've had from the fans, it has been absolutely staggeringly supportive. The number of direct messages we've had, tweets, people euphoric that they've joined the trust, and we're doing our absolute best to come back to everyone.
I had a question on Twitter on Saturday. Why should fans do this? Because in the past, the clubs don't take account of, and what you've just said about the court case, they don't take account of what fans say. And I think generally the last week has shown fans do have a voice. I'm still a little bit cynical as to, I can't remember who said but the big six won't get penalised. Of course they won't. They won't be kicked out of the Premier League because the Premier League know how important those 6 teams are to their overseas product, which, let's be honest, and let's be straight about this, money in the overseas market is what sells the Premier League, isn't it? As they've all got foreign owners with them, except Tottenham, I think. So what would you say is the reason for somebody, is there a point to joining the trust of the supporters club then? What is that point?
Well, a little bit of what I've been saying in the last couple of minutes. So when you join the trust, you are joining, a proper democratic body. We try and display some of the transparency and openness and engagement that we wish the club would take on board. For example, we show fully audited accounts at our annual AGM so people can see where the money goes and what we spend it on. I wish the club would reciprocate. That would be wonderful. But mainly, by joining the trust and adding to our numbers and contributing financially each month, you are giving us that sort of war chest, really. In the worst case, absolute worst case, we need to look at starting a Phoenix club, or we need to try and help get the club out of administration, whatever. We'll have that pot of money there, and we're able to do some recovery type activities with that. But in a happier future, alongside the supporters club, Vic, of which you're obviously quite involved, we'd like to do nice things. We'd like to improve disabled facilities. We'd like to build a Don Rogers statue in the middle of the Magic Roundabout. We'd love to get out in the schools and give away 1,000 free tickets to schools every game. Like, there's so much you could do.
On football?
Yeah, that'd be lovely, wouldn't it? That'd be lovely.
Great.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
In happier times, a supporters trust can do a lot of good in the community, especially in that void where the club don't operate, and it's really sad. But in the worst case, we need a voice, and we need potentially funds to battle some of these issues.
Mark, this is a question we all want an answer to, says Peter. What is Mark's barometer on renewing his season ticket at the moment? Because we've gone from, I'm definitely not going to renew my season ticket, I might renew my season ticket. Where are we at now?
If Lee Power's there next season, no. 100% not. I refuse to line his pockets any longer. Away games. If he's not the owner, I will definitely get a season ticket because I want to support the club. And going back to what Dan was saying about the trust, I think there's a huge disconnect, isn't there, between the club and the fans. So if we join the trust, it's a way of staying connected in that sense, isn't it? And that's what people should definitely do. So I'll certainly put a plug out for them. But at the moment, my season ticket barometer is low to nil if Power is the owner. And if he isn't, then I won't just reconsider. I'll do it. As and when the details come out, I'll do what I've done for the last 27 years since the Don Rogers stand was built, whenever it was. I will be in the same seat as I have been. Easy.
Matt, Let me ask you about fans then. You know, you've been a player. I know you're very involved with the club in terms of the hospitality side of it now. Has your view of fans changed, or have you always thought they're important? What do you, as a player, what do they think of fans? Let's get that out in the open.
Depends if you're playing well or not.
Yes.
But yeah, I think, players now, certainly with social media and whatever, they come out and say the right things. I don't think they necessarily mean them. It's the standard response. And fans are brilliant today. On to the next one, we go again. Blah blah blah. All these things that scripted just to say. But yeah, when you're doing well and you look forward to playing at home and having the fans behind you, and it does give you that extra little bit that you need. And since retiring from football and going to watch as a fan and sort of being involved with the club from that side of it, you do realise how much it means to people. When you're a player, you have that disconnect because yes, people want to come talk to you and whatever, but as a player, you just you want to keep your distance a little bit. You do your bits out in the community, to schools and hospitals and whatever, but you don't really speak to too many fans on any sort of personal level or deep level. And then seeing it from the other side, you realise that actually, what the club means to so many people, and it, obviously doing this, and you realise it is people's lives. It's not just something they enjoy doing once a week, going to the football. It is, it's all consuming, and I think, like you say, the disconnect certainly this season, even just compared to last season, it felt that everything was going. The club and the fans and on the social media, everything was just sort of connecting as one. And then this year, it's like all out civil war. You can get two more different seasons, really.
Yeah, obviously we must make the point that because of coronavirus, none of us have been in the ground, and that's been you would have hated that, wouldn't you, Matt? Not to play in front of fans. Yeah, I know sometimes you probably wouldn't have, but you take my point.
Yeah, it would be tough. I know it's sort of been said that some players are sort of performing better without the crowd, but I know for a fact that I wanted the crowd to be there, and if to start with, it was sort of the novelty, but the novelty soon wears off, and you go into another empty stadium, and it feels like it's just like a reserve game. Yeah, there's 3 points on it, and it means loads. And say for example, like the local derbies, the Oxford games, and it's all getting built up on social media. But then you turn up to a ground, and there's no one bricking your bus, and there's no one throwing flares, and you think, well, it's just another game, isn't it? So I would have missed it massively.
There's no way for me that John Sheridan would still have been manager if fans had been in that ground bit.
Because of the comments, yeah.
We'd have handed him out in the way we have done with other managers. You could think back to certain turning points, the substitutions against Oxford, where he took both centre halves off, the 5 substitutions where he looked like he was taking the mick, other times where we would have just absolutely hammered him, and rightly so. And he should have gone long, long ago. If there'd been fans in the ground, I think 15 to 20 games ago, we got somebody else in, because people just wouldn't accept what they were seeing. We had to accept it from a distance or be resigned to it from a distance, but not actually in the ground. There's strength in numbers, isn't there, in that sense, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I always keep going back to that Mansfield game that you played in, when half the crowd was for Andy King and half the ground was against it. I mean, it was a poisonous atmosphere.
I remember it quite well. It was horrible to play in. Yeah, I remember it. It was just strange, like you say. It was sort of fans having to go at each other, and then some having to go at the manager, and then some fans having to go at them for having to go at the manager. And whilst it's going on, we've got to try and play a game. It was strange, but that's a fan's right.
You
to go to the game and vent their frustrations and tell people a few hard truths, and there's nothing wrong with it for the most part. As long as it doesn't overstep the mark and start getting personal. And I think, like you say, as Mark said, this season John Sheridan would have walked. Time ago, and that probably would have meant someone coming in and having half a chance of staying up.
Yeah, let's get some more of these comments, which is let's have a look from Max. Makes sense to have Peacock as interim manager, especially if the ownership changes hands. Makes sense, and I'd rather have a nice guy than John Sheridan. Dan, Sean Platt says, could leaflets
Hi,
be
Sean.
distributed in and around Swindon to join the trust? Even if every season ticket holder contributes £1 a month, there's a few grand a month, etc., etc. So, gosh, you've all got jobs. I mean, I know, a lot. You do all this in your spare time, so going out and distributing leaflets isn't going to be easy. But is there anything like that?
If only you knew someone in the delivery business.
Do it.
Huh?
Well, I was thinking of letting Brett Pittman do it, but he might miss the post box.
It'd take him too long.
No, it's a good question, Sean. Thank you. On the membership piece, obviously a lot of our attention right now is focused online, focused through doing various local media pieces and me speaking on this event tonight. But the leaflet option definitely, is a good option going forward. We've done leaflets to promote other events like our, the 50th anniversary League Cup AGM. So we're not against that. I think it's probably just a case of right now we're at the coalface and we're all busy, but that remains an option going forward. I must plug, we now have a new mailbox for membership queries, membership@truststfc.com. Please use this, town fans, if you've got any queries relating to your trust membership. We should have had welcome emails going out this week to all of our new members over the last couple of weeks. We're using a new mail mechanism which looks and feels a lot better, so hopefully that's going to help us get our newsletters and get our welcome emails out a lot smoother. So continue to bear with us. It's been a really hectic period, but thank you everyone.
Yeah, I got mine yesterday. I just like to say that. And for somebody who's pretty rubbish with all this new technology, for me to read an email the same day was pretty good. And Mark, where do we go from here then? Let's be positive, right? Come June, a new regime. Let's try and be positive, right? And the new regime comes in. What are you realistically expecting come August? If you're looking on the positive side of it, because it's very easy to be negative at the minute. And trust me, as a Swindon fan of 50 odd years standing, I know how to be negative. Let's be honest. Right. Let's start on the positive side then.
Okay. So a new regime comes in and we start like every other team in League Two on 0 points. That's a positive for a start. Okay. Not -12, not -15. We then get in a few experienced heads who know what it's like to be, play in League Two, who have that experience, plus some lads coming in. Harry Parsons were one, perhaps from the youth team and others, young lads, and then you have that perfect blend of youth and experience. And you play with pride in the shirt, and maybe you finish halfway. You may get to the playoffs, and that will be an extremely positive season, I think. And then you can start to build, and you can start to think about perhaps an assault on League Two the following year. You can then start to think longer term about the ground, which is very, very ramshackle and in severe need of a rebuild, isn't it? We need to get that sorted out as a matter of urgency before it even loses its safety certificate. You could see parts of the ground perhaps for that happening too. So, yeah, that's what I would think. That we just let's use the word stabilise for next year.
Yeah, good word. I'm very happy with that word, Matt, and I think we'd all like to see that, wouldn't we? I'd like a boring season when we just concentrate on what goes on the pitch, quite frankly. What are your views on that?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think Mark's right. I think, obviously, determine a way of playing, get sort of a philosophy back. And then, in terms of the playing side, get the goalkeeper sorted, because this season was a shambles. How many different goalkeepers, young lads. Get yourself a proper, experienced goalkeeper. If you've got to pay a bit more, then that's what you've got to do. Because
I mean, I've got to say, Lee Camp has impressed me, and would he be the sort of player you see in goal, Lee Camp?
Well, yeah, why not? I think he's conceded a lot of goals, but not many of them have been his fault. I think he's pulled off some good saves, and to have that experience. Yeah, I know there were injuries and different things at the start of the season, but to have that experienced keeper, there's your platform. Decent centre half, centre midfield player. Get yourself a centre forward that can get around the pitch and can put a shift in. I mean, Brett Pittman's give him a chance inside the box, and he's, you can't argue that he'll stick it away. But you need to have that bit of mobility up there and just sort that spine out. I mean, it's a cliche. Everyone says, goalkeeper, centre half, centre mid, centre forward, and then you can bring the young lads in, from the youth team, or you sign a winger on loan from a Premier League club who's 19 and not played, and a fullback or whatever. But you've got to get the centre of the pitch sorted out, which is what's been lacking this season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the keeper. I think we've had 8 keepers, but goodness knows how many central defensive partnerships, like 3 or 4 a game, it seems to me. And I think that's important, isn't it, Dan? I mean, it is a bit old-fashioned when you go the spine of the team, but there's nothing wrong with that. And I totally agree with Matt. If you've got a decent keeper, central defensive partnership, central midfield, and forwards, you're kind of halfway there, aren't you?
Yeah, I think, no side deliberately recruits badly. I think the market that Swindon Town was shopping in this year dictated that Wellens and co took chances on slightly better players with worse injury records. And I think that's fallen flat on its face this year. Large, long periods without Lydon, Friars, Baudry. I don't know what's happened to Rob Hunt this year, injury-wise, but that's cost us. I think, and again, even with a new ownership piece completed, the market we're going to be shopping in next year for players halfway up in League Two, there's still an element of gamble of whether that player is going to come off or this one, isn't. We have to certainly be better at loaning players next season compared to this. Probably with the exception of Travers in goal, and Garrick's done okay on the wing. Tyler Smith done okay, but been frozen out. The loans have been a real weakener to the squad. Whereas last year, you had some quality players in that team: Yates, Doyle, Grant, joined on loan. Some of them become permanently, some of them regrettably did not, and made the team stronger. So certainly we'll be using the loan market again anyway. Got to use it better.
Carol says, I don't know who wants to take this one. It's a very good question, though. Sorry if this has been asked. It hasn't. But do we have any idea when the FA will make a decision on any punishments for what has been described as Lee Powers misdemeanours? And this is over the third-party ownership. I mean, the thing is, I think they had till Friday to get their response into the Football Association.
Yeah.
So now I think it's up to the FA. Is it Wembley now, I think, isn't it, where they're based, to actually sort of look through and decide what charges, if any, there are to make. So it's in the hands of the FA, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I can try and add a little bit to that, Vic, if that's okay. So you're right. It was the 22nd of April was the deadline for the offenders, if you want to use that word, to
alleged.
Respond.
Should we put alleged in front? Yeah,
alleged offenders, sorry.
Good
to
old
respond to the
trick.
FA, to respond to the FA charges. We have been trying our best in the background, and we've had some really good help from both of our Swindon MPs, Justin Tomlinson and Robert Buckland. So thank you, gentlemen. We've been trying to lobby the FA where we can. We've been trying to arrange a meeting with the FA to meet with us as a trust. Unfortunately, they're rather flat batting it, saying that they can't talk about an ongoing legal matter. So we're trying to use our contacts as best we can to find out how the parties responded, and we'll endeavour to update the Swindon fan base with what we know.
Okay, lovely. This from Steve, Mark. Scott Twine, stay or go? It's up to him, obviously, but
it is up to Scott. I'd love him to stay. I think he's got some promise and potential, and you look at the way that he has come on to some degree this year. Let's argue that with a good coach, he'd come on a lot more, wouldn't he? If you get a poor coach, he's probably stood still. Whereas what he wants to do is to develop his football career and improve as a footballer. And you'll improve as a footballer if you get a decent man coaching you. You won't under this regime. So he's done quite well. I think there's more to come from Scott, but he's a local lad. We want him to do well. I suspect, however, that whenever anybody comes in for some money, it will be tribunal money, of course, not a transfer fee. he will go.
Matt, I know you know Brian Howard well, who is his agent, I believe. And Dan is, I think, playing against Brian Howard on Sunday in the Loathed Strangers Shield. Can you have a quiet word with your mate Brian, Matt, and have a word with him?
You know what? I didn't know Brian was his agent. No, but yeah, I am going to be there. I will see Brian on Sunday. I agree with Mark. You know, it would be nice if he stayed, but you look at it from a player's point of view. You know, again, all this is up in the air. And other clubs, more stable clubs, you know, further up the football pyramid, are going to be interested. And let's be honest, you know, it depends who's in charge. But if Lee Power's in charge and someone comes in with a decent sum, then he's on his way. Simple as that. It doesn't matter that he signed a new deal. That's, you know, that just bumps the price up a few numbers. That's all. And if someone comes in a decent, the top end of League One or, you know, bottom end of the Championship comes in for him, then as a player, you know, hometown boy or not, then, you know, why would you expect him to stay?
Yeah, fair enough. Right, let's wrap this up then. You are playing on Sunday, I think, Dan, aren't you? Good luck with the hamstrings. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
That's right. I don't know. I mean, my mood on Saturday was anger, frustration, fed up. If I'd had a cat, well, it would have suffered. Let's put it like that. So
Allegedly.
How fed up are you with this? Because I'm fed up with not worrying about football. I'm fed up with, you know, for most of my Swindon Town supporting life, there have been one crisis after another, many of whom I reported on. But I'm fed up with that. I just want to watch 11 grown men kick a ball about on a Saturday afternoon. That's what I want to do. How fed up are you with this?
Who's that directed at, Vic?
You, Dan. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sort of want to switch to cricket mode and just forget about Swindon, but I'm not sure the club's going to let me. We got a busy period ahead as a trust, obviously. No, we just got to try and turn the apathy. We got to try and turn the anger. You know, both camps there, slightly different ends of the spectrum, but we've got to try and channel that, and we've got to try and turn this massive negative into a positive. And the united nature of the fan base now, united against Lee Power, you know, let's use it. You know, let's be the tightest we've been as a fan base, and let's affect change, and then let's start making a positive future. So we've got no other choice, frankly.
Mark, what's your view on it?
Yeah, fed up's one way of describing it, Vic. Anger. I think I definitely feel anger. I remember being on the panel in November and saying I definitely didn't want us to go down to League Two, and it's now happened. But I think we can turn that anger into a positive. I think, you know, we've got to fight for the future of this football club. That's how much this means, and what we're staring in the face of. To be quite frank, it is the very future and survival of this football club, and we want the good times to come back. We want the times that we had last year, not just to be a one-off, 1 in 5 years, but to be, if not the norm, then, you know, every so often we want to have a football club that we can support and be proud of. And I honestly believe that we can do, but it's going to be a bit rocky, I suspect, for the next year or two.
Matt, I mean, last year was fantastic, and I think that is half the. I mean, you go from a ridiculous high to this ridiculous low, and it has been like that, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And obviously not been in the ground all season. I know the end of last season as well. They didn't even get the chance to celebrate the promotion, and then you're straight into a downer of a season, and, you know, the way it's finished. But it'll all come round again. On July the 1st, it'll be, you know, Super Marine away, and you'll be stood there in the sun having a pint, and there'll be a few new players in and a new manager, and it'll all be optimistic again. And that's the way to look at it, because, you know, it'll be another season will come round, and it'll all go again.
Well, that's a great positive way of looking at it, and let's all go to Super Marine. I don't know if they're playing Super Marine this year, are we? Is there a fixture been announced yet? Yeah, of course it will be. Yeah, we'll all go and have a pint together, shall we? That'll be a great idea.
You're paying, Vic.
Hang on. Let's not get silly about this, Matt. You're the ex-professional. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Dan, good luck on Sunday. What time's kickoff?
So, Strangers Shield, Sunday, 2nd of May. It's a 12 o'clock kickoff. It's going to be streamed live on YouTube. It's the Rich Pullen 11 versus the Chris Tanner 11. Chris Tanner, the ex-media officer of Swindon Town for a long number of years. I think we've got some confirmed ex-players playing. Rhys Evans, Phil Smith, Gerald Eiffel, Brian Howard. And if Twine doesn't sign a new contract, I'll leave one on Brian. Don't worry, everyone. We've got a couple of players, Honor Fraser and Gypsy Vivash from the STFC ladies team as well. And us podcast Muppets as well. So if you want to see me getting skinned by Gypsy Vivash, then tune in and make a donation to the charity of Alan McLaughlin's Family's Choice. That will be revealed in the coming days. So yeah, get behind it, raise a lot of money. Let's try and end the season on a hilarious, slightly happier note.
Yeah, and of course we wish Alan all the very best. Of course,
yeah, absolutely.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. And Honor, we should say, of course, is a regular member of this panel. So good luck to Honor. Hello, Chris, once again.
Hi. Thank you very much, guys. Matt, Dan and Mark, and of course, Vic. That was brilliant. Really good hour. So next week will be a regular Monday night panel reviewing the Ipswich game. The following week, as I said, we've got a special season review, which is one of three, because on the Tuesday night we have the Player of the Season award, and also on the Wednesday night we've got pub historian Matic back for a second interview as well. Just as Dan gave an update on the Trust, we'll just give an update on the Supporters Club. We've had a huge influx of members, which is great. Thank you very much. All the welcome letters and cards have gone out, so you should be getting those within the next few days if you haven't already. And we'd like to see as many window and car stickers out in the towns where you live, as many as possible, please. So thank you very much all. Have a good evening, and there you go. And we will see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.